everyone. My name is Jean Villedieu. I'm one of the co-founders of Linkurious. Linkurious is a graph visualization startup. We are specialized in helping organizations and folks understand complex connected data. Our main product is called Linkurious Enterprise. It's a product that can be used by non-technical people to search, explore, and extract insights from graph data. We have 200 customers worldwide, including organizations like NASA, for example, but also the French Ministry of Finances and various Fortune 500 across the world. But we also have partnerships with our friends from Data to Value who are organizing this conference today, and the folks from Neotechnology. So today I will be talking about a very important subject to us, graph visualization, and I will try to share some pointers, some good practices with you. And before I get started, I would like to talk a little bit about the value of data visualization first. So here we have a quote from a US mathematician called John Tukey, who explains that the greatest value of a picture is when it forces us to notice what we never expected to see. We are dealing with more and more data, and we need tools to understand it and to be able to make decisions. And that's exactly what data visualizations enables. It helps us as human make sense of the data to make decisions. And if data visualization is important, why is graph visualization especially important? So first of all, graph visualization is a very simple topic. It's about representing data as nodes and images. And here we can see an example of a graph visualization. We have one node here with some properties attached to it, like a name, which is said, and an age, which is 29. And we can see that this node here is connected to another node there, which is a location, which is Paris, by a relationship. So this is a very simple example of a graph visualization. And graph visualization can help us understand complex connected data and answer questions like how are this node and this node connected, or what is the influence of this node in the larger network, or what is the shortest path between node A and node B. This is the kind of questions that we can use graph visualization to answer. We see customers using our solution and graph visualization to tackle challenges like fraud detection, intelligence analysis, cybersecurity, or medical research, among some of the use cases that we are familiar with. So it's important to understand that it has very broad applications. So now I will start with the important ideas about how to run good graph visualizations. And to do that, I've chosen a slightly different approach, and I will try to teach you some of the worst practices. So basically, I will try to tell you what not to do. So advice one: if you are want to do a graph visualization project, first of all, don't set business objectives. If you do, you are going to run into problems. So don't define goals for your graph visualization, and don't define any kind of expectations. You should assume that just by doing a graph visualization, that will provide answers to your question and deliver value to your organization. So when you think about this rule, think about not figuring out whether you want to use the graph visualization to administrate your data, for example, or for example to understand your data, or to monitor it. So first rule: don't set any kind of objectives for your graph visualization. Second rule: it's very important. You probably none of you are working alone, so you have colleagues, you have teams. A very, very important concept is to not consider them. Don't consider your users. You are going to be building, perhaps going to be building graph visualizations. Don't want you to think about who are the people who are going to need them, what are their motives, what are their questions. Don't think about this, and just care about what you want and what you believe is important. After all, you know what's right, and you don't need to ask the opinion of other people. So, an important takeaway is that you must absolutely not think about your users and about their roles, their expectations. Perhaps they are developers, perhaps they are data scientists, analysts, perhaps they are just part of the general public. Of course, they are going to have some different knowledge about graph visualization, different questions, different capabilities, but just don't think about that, put that away, and figure out what's important for you. So that's lesson 2. And by the way, I would be very interested in knowing if any of you are already familiar with these good practices and are already following them. So, lesson 3, you are doing perhaps you are going to be doing a graph visualization project. It's important to take it as an art project, something where you are trying to accomplish. To produce something aesthetically beautiful and pleasing, you should consider yourself as an artist, and your graph visualization must first and foremost entertain. So think when you are building this graph visualization, think about using stuff like 3D. This is probably going to impress a whole lot of persons. Think also about using colored backgrounds, for example. Obviously, it's going to make it harder to distinguish the data and to understand what is going on, but it might have some interesting aesthetic qualities. So think about that. Also, try to come up with fancy interactions when you are clicking. Perhaps it should trigger some kind of firework or something like that. That's also going to add to the art value of your graph visualization. And importantly, don't consider some of the ways you can use you can display informations in graph visualization, which are the colors, which are the sizes, glyphs, icons, and nodes which can be used to project information in your graph visualization. You don't want to think about that. You want to think about fancy stuff, about impressive stuff like 3D color backgrounds and so on. So that's advice number 3. Advice number 4, you don't want to add interactivity. Your visualizations should be very static. You should come up with a proper design that you think is important and explains what you want the meaning that you want to convey, and you should under any circumstances try to avoid letting your users interact with the data to answer their own questions and to figure out things for themselves. This is dangerous. You should not think that your users are intelligent and capable of doing smart things. So avoid interactivity. Stuff like, for example, the ability to zoom in, to focus on a specific part of the graph visualization. Stuff like the ability to add some extra information when you hover on a node or an edge. Stuff like the ability to expand relationships, or the ability to search, filter. These are very dangerous because it could give power to your users, and it could give them the ability to interact with the data, to come up with their own answers. And we don't want to do that. So advice number 4, no interactivity. Advice number 5, it's also very important. Don't think about the data. Data is always very, very easy. You can get it very quickly. There's no need to do any kind of cleaning. Don't think about your data. You may have heard that data preparation can be time consuming. Don't trust that. It's going to be very easy, very quick. You may also have heard that that when we are talking about graph visualization, there are various ways to model and to represent data. For example, a time value can be represented as a single property or as a set of nodes and relationships. But don't think about this stuff. It's going to be super easy and super intuitive to model your graph data, and there will obviously be just one way to come up with that model. So if you want to remember that, make sure that you just don't test it and iterate. Just come up with one approach to importing and to preparing your data, and never under any circumstance test and iterate. So that's advice number 5. Advice number 6, once again, it's very important. I don't want you to make any kind of mistakes. Don't remember to let the user figure things out for themselves. You don't want to give them clues. So under no circumstances should you provide stuff like legends to your data and your graph visualizations. This kind of information can help them interpret the graph visualization correctly, and we don't want to do that. We want to keep them guessing. We want them to make mistakes, and a good way to make that happen is to remove legends, labels, and tooltips. So that's tip number 6. Let the user figure things out for himself. It will be fun and entertaining for them. Advice number 7, we are talking about graph visualization, and it's important to always try to display as much data as you can. Your users have nice computers, and they are going to be super impressed when they will be able to test their limits by displaying a lot of data on their computers. So try to find interesting, innovative ways to overload your users with information. So try to find ways to show nice graphs like this one with hundreds of thousands of nodes and edges. Obviously, it's going to be a big mystery to your users. They're not going to be able to understand what is going on, but it's definitely going to impress them. They will think that you are smarter than them, that you can analyze this sort of massive graph, and you will be better off in the process. So don't consider the other constraints of your users, the fact that perhaps they are not going to be able to display these massive graphs in the first place, and don't consider an even more important constraint, which is their cognitive constraint, the ability to analyze, to understand actually different elements. We are, generally speaking, limited at, on average, the ability to consider 7 distinct elements at a given time, but you don't want to take that into consideration when you do a graph visualization. So, very important, display massive graphs. That's advice number 7. My last advice is based on my experience as a co-founder of Linkurious. I want you to really remember that. It's going to be super easy to take care of the functional stuff. You are an expert. You can do it all. And if you do a graph visualization project, you will come up with a prototype. It's going to be extremely easy, extremely simple to get that into production up and running. So stuff like security, collaboration, stability, scalability, support training, we don't want to think about that. These sort of issues, they should be figured out on the fly once you have the project in production. It's going to be fun. It's going to create a lot of opportunities for you to interact with your users and with the rest of your company. And it may also help find new professional opportunities. So always try to reinvent stuff and to build complete new applications from the ground up on your own and with limited external supports. So that's my my eight advice, pieces of advice. I want to know if we have at least one person here who is already familiar with these eight advice, who is already following them. Yeah, no.
I think this will work very well if a project is very much dependent on good PI and the project is in progress. This will be perfect. And we need a lot of information they give out.
Yeah.
And it's very heavy marketing driven and PR driven.
Yeah.
Government campaign.
I can see that you are already an expert. So we have one graph visualization expert. Anyone else? Not yet. Okay. So I hope that today, with all these pieces of information, you are going to be much better prepared to tackle the next graph visualization project.
I definitely have a suggestion there, which is if you're doing this, if you don't get the data looking how you want, you should redo it until you get what you expect.
Very good, sir. So I've just added a small disclaimer, yeah, which is to not follow these pieces of advice. I wasn't sure that it would be clear, so here is the disclaimer.
And I think it's also very good if you are about to start a project and you haven't defined it, but you still have to get a lot of information out of the project.
Yeah.
It will be very good.
Thanks. Well,
Thank you.